Welcome to another episode of Life and Whiskey. As always, I'm Jordan, and today we're going to look at Law's 4-grain bourbon, 4-grain straight bourbon, batch number 24, 47.5% ABV, so that makes it 95 proof, aged 3 years, at least 3 years. So there's your age statement. Here's what I have to say. I've tried this, and my opinion on it is slightly different than everybody else's. Most people, if you watch a review of Law's, any of the Law's products, they kind of give them a raving review. So far, and granted, neck pour and all that jazz going on here, and just having opened this bottle, not impressed. Maybe on this review today, it'll be different, but what I remember of this is that it tastes young, very green grass, and a lot of the green notes that are associated with young whiskey. It is not unpleasant. It is a nice drinking whiskey. It just tastes young, and rightfully so, because it is a young whiskey. Got a tickle in my throat, so maybe we should... it's the Omicron. It's got me. Maybe I better get into this here. See if we can't knock that back a little bit. Yeah, it was young. So it wasn't, to me, it tasted like so many other craft distillery whiskeys out there. It had that kind of craft note to it, that just youngness and whatever else. The thing about the Law's Distillery down in Denver, Colorado, is that they make a point of going above and beyond, of doing things very in-depth and by the book to make things as good as they possibly can. Like, they're very involved in the process. It's all about the process. And for that, I will give them a multitude of credit, because they deserve it. They do have great products. I just wasn't impressed with this particular bottling the first time that I had it. So this will be my second taste of this, and you guys will get to experience it with me. Maybe similarly to the High West, High Country American Single Malt that I just got done reviewing. Maybe this will have changed, and I'll change my opinion on it altogether. We'll see. But here we go. In the nose, the nose is very light. It smells malty, kind of like a scotch, and a young maltiness. So I get that green, fresh cut grass kind of greenness to it. Like, it just hasn't matured enough. On top of that, you get a very light honey, and a little bit of sweet vanilla icing. Way in the back, though, that light green note is forward. So it just smells young, okay? And, to its credit, 3 years, it is young. And depending on how they have it stored and where they have it stored, they talk about the altitude and blah, 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 blah. That doesn't really have as much to do with what's going on. Heat is what's going to really introduce the most wood impact from the aging process, and it's going to lean heavy into those tannins and dark oak notes. And yes, Denver is plenty warm, but depending on what type of climate they are putting that aged spirit into, if it's a temperature control room, or if it's a non-regulated warehouse or whatever, that's going to directly impact what you're getting out of this. Okay, the greenness is subsiding slightly, and the reason why I went on that little, speak right there, oh boy, I started speaking there, was to let this open up a little bit and see if it changes, and indeed it did. It's kind of going, once again, hate to say it, more towards that Buffalo Trace. floralness, or an MGP type floralness, almost like a rye. Now, let me look quick just to see if it does say the mash bill on here or not. Varieties of wheat, barley, rye, and of course corn, and grown in Colorado. So I don't know what the percentages are. Maybe on the website it says, but it doesn't say on the bottle. But yeah, it's starting to go more Sazerac, Buffalo Trace kind of profile now. So that greenness has disappeared. So on the first couple of times I tried this, I did not let it open up in the glass. So maybe that'll change things here. I'm getting a little bit of a brown sugar note in there. Okay, on the taste. The taste is young. It tastes like it's pot stilled because it has a lot of flavor components to it. It has some maltiness, a little bit of an ethanol bite, black peppery, oak tannin type characteristic that carries through the whole profile. It has a syrupy viscosity on the tongue. Okay, so there you go. I'm going to change everything I just got done saying about this bourbon. It has more character, more of a profile than it originally had for me. And I can see why it's getting the love and praise that it is, because that is tasting very different than the first time I had it. The first time I had it, it tasted very broken in the flavor profile, and it was a lot of grainy notes. So like it tasted like a rye whiskey and a corn whiskey and a little bit of a malt whiskey in there, broken into these different components, and like you could pick out those different components. This time, that flavor profile is way more melded together, and although I am getting flavor components from those different styles of whiskey, they meld and flow together way nicer than originally I had thought. Now, going back into the glass, I'm getting that maltiness and green again. But there I go. Just that's nosing right there was all bourbon, sweet cherry, ethanol, brown sugar. On the taste, that was honey and malt forward, spice in the middle, and a tannic bitiness that kind of is picking up and carrying out with a hard candy sugary sweetness underlaying it. It's mostly tannic with a little bit of sweet underneath. So there you go. There's two different sips, two different nosings that each of them presented differently. Okay, Laws, I'll give it to you. Much better whiskey than I originally thought it was. Let me open up my whiskey list here. I bought this locally. This was the only variety that I did see locally from Laws that I could get. And this came in at $56.49, and that was at the cheap liquor store here in town. So not a cheap bottle. I know it's the craft market, and so in that space, you have to understand that the distilleries need to kind of get that higher price point. Their bottles are embossed with their name and whatever else, so this is not a cheap glass bottle as well. So, all those things play in. However, for the price point, unfortunately, they're competing with a lot of other whiskeys that I much prefer. So although it is a good whiskey and a lovely craft representation, it is not what I'm reaching for at almost $60 or above $50. If it was in the $40 range, okay, I can totally see it there. However, like I said, the glass bottle is more expensive. The craft market really has to maintain or does start at that $35 mark. And that's from years past. You add inflation on top of that, maybe you're at the $40 mark. I can see how they got to that price point, but it's just not, that's not what I'm reaching for. But it is a good whiskey. If you're ever in the Denver airport, some of the places that sell spirits, go ahead and get a pour of the Laws while you're at it, and give it a whirl, because it is pretty good whiskey. In my opinion, it's just not competing with the likes of here in Wyoming, the Wyoming whiskey brand. I think they have much better and more interesting whiskeys, or a lot of the tried and true Kentucky brands out there. I just, I like those a little bit better. I did get a little bit of graham cracker on it that time. So here's the thing. I'm not knocking it. It's a good whiskey. It is a very good whiskey. I think that, as far as bourbon goes, it has a lot to offer. Like I said, a lot of the notes that I ripped on in the very beginning of this video, having not tried it during the video, I'm going to move all those aside. You can cut those out. That is not what I was finding this go round. However, that was the truth as to what I was finding when I first tried this spirit. So there you go. Laws 4-grain straight bourbon. It's a buy. If you can find it less than $56, do so. Give it a whirl. If you, like I said, if you're flying through Denver International, you can find it at some of the places that serve liquor there. And it might be a great way to try it. Drop in the comments down below what you can find a bottle of Lost 4-grain for in your area. I'd be interested in seeing if that price point varies depending on where you're at quite drastically. Also, if you are a fan or not a fan, let me know. I'd be interested in hear that as well. I'm going to say I am a fan. I just would like to see it cheaper for what it is. And it's only a 3-year-old whiskey. So at that price point, you're competing with stuff 8 to 12 years old. So it's kind of a hard sell. Again, it is a craft spirit though. So, you got to understand the market that you're dealing with. So there you go. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with people who you think might find it useful or interesting. I greatly appreciate that. If you are watching this on YouTube, check out Life and Whiskey on Rumble and BitChute. Those are going to be the main platforms I use going forward. And as always, thanks for watching. I greatly appreciate it. You guys have yourselves a great day, and we'll catch you in the next video.